Want to help your brand stand out in a sea of competition? Get ready for some great insights on how to do just that on today's episode of Communicate for Impact Live.
Welcome to Communicate for Impact Live, sharing stories, making connections. We're Douglas and Lisa Marie Hatcher, co-founders of Communicate for Impact, and our job is to help you create better content faster. And today we are delighted to welcome our guest, Karley Cunningham of Big Bold Brand, all the way from Vancouver. Hi, Karley.
Hello, it's such a pleasure to be here with you both this morning.
Vancouver. We're in New York. I love New York. Don't get me wrong, but Vancouver sounds amazing.
Oh, there's nothing better than fall in that area. I grew up in Ontario, so yeah, they're different colors for sure.
Yes. Karley, thank you for joining us this morning. Let's just dive right in.
Let's do it.
You are a pro's pro when it comes to branding, but you're also a pro's pro when it comes to professional mountain biking. Two questions. Which came first? And secondly, how are the two interrelated?
Ooh, okay. Which came first? So, which came first was definitely my start into the career of graphic design, advertising, marketing, communications. I've feel like I've done it all in my body of work, aside from PR, that is over there and someone else's expertise. But yeah, I was working in the agency world when I started mountain biking. Essentially, as the story goes with most women, they have a breakup and they either go cut their hair or they go buy something expensive. And funny enough, being authentic to me, I went and bought a truck, and then I thought, I need a toy for the back of it, and it was either a jet ski living in southwestern Ontario or a mountain bike. And I thought, well, I don't have docking access anywhere, and that sounds like a bit of a little bit too difficult. One of my top values is convenience. Sometimes it serves me, sometimes it makes things more difficult. But I bought myself a mountain bike and just quickly fell into the race scene, and away that went.
Wow, it's a lot cheaper too.
Well, that's debatable. No? I won't tell you what my latest bike costs. I don't think I told my wife either.
Wow. Awesome. Okay.
You did ask, how are the two related? I would suggest there's a big correlation for me between being a business owner and being an athlete, and that really is about what. Every time I go into a race, I do more trail running races now than I do mountain bike races. I find I just like to play on my mountain bike. But anytime I go into a race, there's so many things that you have to think about. I often start with strategy. So knowing what this race course looks like, how do I want to run this race? How do I run my own race? Because I know for me that it takes me a little bit longer to warm up, to kind of get into the flow. So I'm not going off the start line really, really hot and really, really fast, because that just leads to an implosion. So same thing with business. What is my strategy for this year? Or what is our strategy for this project? Or what is the strategy that we're building for a client based on working back from the end result? And then, of course, there's the execution of that strategy. How am I going to approach this? What do we need along the way? For me, it's interesting. My wife always says, and she's very, very right, whether it's a hiking trip or trail running or something, a big, big adventure that scares me, is you always pack for your fears. And so I'm always packing for food and for being cold. I hate being cold. And when I don't have food, I'm not a nice person to be around. And you just don't function well without food, especially when you're, 30 kilometers out in the middle of the wilderness. So yeah, I mean, some of my friends pack for bears and cougars. So, in business.
Pack for your fears. I love that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Well, I think we pack for fun, but we also do, you better pack for fears. That's really good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, let's stay with the whole branding and biking theme here.
All right.
You've been able to harness your biking background into building a really vibrant community that also benefits your business. Are there any tactical insights that you can provide to our viewers on how you pair your passion with building a community?
I love that question. I think one of the pieces of that starts with authenticity, which is why I showed up wearing one of my race jerseys from a relay I did with a bunch of friends. And I think building yourself a community where you can show up as yourself and being around like-minded people. Now, the people I'm around, they don't have to like mountain biking. They don't have to like being outside in the outdoors, but I can talk about what I do. I can be my most authentic self when people are genuinely interested in me. And I am genuinely interested in people's stories. And so being able to dialogue around who are you authentically, which is something that business owners are always asking me. How do we build an authentic brand? How do we show up authentically? How do we tell our story authentically so it doesn't feel too tight and crafted? And I know that Douglas could probably even comment on that, because that is, writing speeches for important people and bringing the stories into that. So yeah. And
So,
then
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just
Everybody.
I mean, when I was at MasterCard, the CEO at the time was Ajay Banga. He was absolutely brilliant at so many things, but one of them was making sure people had permission to show up authentically. He did just a masterful job of doing that.
Isn't
This
that amazing how it
yeah,
opens space when you
it
do
does.
that? Yeah.
It does. Helps with a lot of things from recruitment to retention and everything in between.
Absolutely. And then I think, Lisa, to further the question, is looking at what are we building this community for? How do I want people to feel when they're in this community? I mean, again, similar to brand, how do we want people to feel anytime they encounter a touch point or one of us? And there is that essence. And when you get to know that community, or say you've seen a speaker speak on stage, and there's an energy about them that you like, whether it's electric, whether it's they have the ability to lift everybody up, whether it's they're just magnetic and intense and are very knowledgeable and possibly a little nerdy. If you can build a community around how you show up, and then when people come into your community and they feel that same sense, that starts to create alignment, which builds reputation. So those are some of my key tips, but feel free to ask others.
And a lot of a lot of times people are afraid to be their authentic self. But you have to be authentic, because there's going to be somebody out there that can relate to you. And chances are there are going to be a lot of people out there that can relate to you. And when you build that connection, that's how you can build your business. So it's just so important to bring an authentic story to the table. So, Karley, talk to us about one of the signature offerings you have for your clients called the Surefire Method. Tell us about that.
Thanks for asking. Why don't I do it this way? Let's talk about some of the problems that we solve for our clients, because ultimately it's about your audience, and maybe they'll resonate with some of this. So often, coaches, consultants, business owners, and leaders of small to medium-sized entities, that they're coming to us and they're saying, okay, team, okay, Car, how can you help us tell our story better? We don't know what story to tell, or our whole team is telling a different story. They're saying that their messaging lacks impact. Often they don't have a deep enough understanding of their ideal target audience. How else it's showing up symptomatically, and me knowing that they need the Surefire Method is their sales and marketing tools aren't as effective as they need them to be there, or they're disjointed, or their sales and marketing, it's just flattened. They're not getting the results that they used to get. They're not attracting enough business. They're not attracting enough of the ideal business. And interestingly enough, it swings over to the HR side too, is they're not attracting and keeping top talent.
Yeah.
So ultimately it has to do with their reputation and or their exposure. And what they're typically lacking is the key tools. And in our method, there is 11 key tools that any business needs to succeed and thrive that help them solve all of these problems.
So a couple of examples of those tools would be what? Purpose? What kinds of things?
Yeah. So in the bottom, really, they're all about the fundamental beliefs and truths of the organization. But truly at the very bottom of our model, it stacks up. It's kind of the iceberg model, but it annoyed me as a graphic designer. It never really worked as that perfect triangle. But at the bottom is really about who are we? And so what is our purpose beyond making profit? Profit is a great thing that happens when you're doing good things for a community, which is what I truly believe. Then there are, what are your guiding principles, aka your values? We do them a little differently, because I just found that your typical values of integrity, trust, blah blah blah, just we're too generic and too interpretive for a team. So we go a little deeper on that. Then we get into, what's your 3 to 5 year vision? Everybody talks about the BHAG, the moonshot, but 3 to 5 years is something that your brain can wrap itself around. Neuroscience tells us that 3 to 5 years is real. 10, 20, 30 years it's out there. We'll get there in time. And then before you know it, you're 7 years into 10 years, you're like, ooh, maybe we should hurry up a little bit. And then there's personality and character. We've leaned to calling it character because if we say personality, people go, oh, your personas? We're like, no, that's next in your target audience profiles. But really in the heart of that, it's about knowing why you're doing this, being your authentic self, and weaving that into the fabric of who you are, weaving it into those core tools so they can help you make decisions, so they can help you steer the company forward in a way that's authentic to you. And everybody, the other question we get a lot, like, we know we're different, but how do we differentiate ourselves? How do we set ourselves apart in a sea of sameness in a competitive market? I mean, that leans over, we were going to talk about blue ocean strategy. So how do we push ourselves out from those red waters where everybody else is and the competition's fiercely fighting for what's in that area? And so what we found is differentiation, when you can really understand your own fundamental core beliefs and truths and how you show up in the world and what your values are, you can weave that into everything else. Differentiation then happens naturally and authentically. You're not just going, oh, this is the one thing that sets us apart, because there's risk in that, right? As soon as the competition catches up, then you're going this way, and then they catch up, and then someone else, and you're always doing this. But weaving it, just showing up as who you are, which is why I wore one of my race jerseys this morning. I thought I'll change it up and show up as my authentic athlete self this morning. Not that they're not too related, but that's a little bit about some of the tools. And then we get into your typical, what you would call brand positioning tools. So brand story, brand promise, target audience profiles, unique value proposition, and pitch and brief intro. So I've just outlined the 11 there, but we do have something to offer your audience at the end that will list them all for them.
Excellent.
That's awesome. Wow. Talk for just a second about building audience. Are there some tips, real tactical tips you can offer our viewers on how to find your target audience?
Definitely. So you're definitely looking for people that are values aligned. And this is, any target audience. One of the target audiences that most folks haven't even considered is, who are your ideal strategic partners? The other people who serve your audience, who are capable of sending referrals your way. Just like, we naturally found that right away when we talk about authenticity, but I don't do the storytelling. We build a brand story, but we don't do that overarching. So I'm like, oh, now I have the perfect people, Douglas and Lisa Marie, to refer to. So that's one of them, right? But even your prospective employees or contractors, they're an ideal target audience. You're not selling to them, but they help you do your business. So you're looking for, you want to test and tack for, do they believe what we believe? Do they get excited about the vision and what it is we're looking to create in this world? And are they values aligned? Are they demonstrating that they live by our values? So that's a key and critical one to building that authentic space and community and being in flow with folks. If we're going to talk about clients, I'm going to lean on Susan Byer's work because it's absolutely brilliant. She is she does for me what everyone else does for the world, but her true calling and offering is audience audit. You mentioned Jacob earlier. She works with Jacob. So again, tying her in our community here. But what she really taught me is, stop looking at demographics. Ask yourself these 3 questions. What are the problems we solve for our ideal clients? Why haven't they solved them yet? And what is our ideal client's mindset? And that mindset question really helps you identify, well, for me, one of our values in our business is gratitude, always express gratitude. So no matter what part of the dialogue or conversation or sales process we're in with a prospect, I'm always looking to see, are they saying thank you? Are they grateful for the time we've spent together? I tend to offer a lot of value up front. Sometimes I'll send over a tool to them. Am I getting a gracious and grateful response? Because if not, I tend to get a little rough around the edges, so to speak. If I'm not working with people who express gratitude, who are just take, that doesn't work for me. So another ideal mindset is in the sales process, because we always want to close as quickly as possible without, forcing a client into a
Of
selling
course.
situation. We want them to feel like we're being of service, but it's, do they have a sense of urgency and a deadline? And is their problem, however it's showing up in the ones that I listed earlier, is it bothering them so much that they've hit the point of, I'm done with struggling with this. Let's just get this done.
Yep.
So that,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. We have a book called Win with Decency, and in that book we talk about 5 traits that are really important for your company, and they're humility, empathy, vulnerability, gratitude, and generosity. On the gratitude front, one of the people we profile is a guy by the name of Doug Conant, Conant. I don't know him personally, but when he's the former CEO at Revlon, but I think I know he was the CEO of Campbell's Soup. When he was at Campbell's Soup, he wrote over 30,000 handwritten thank you notes to employees. And I guarantee, I know that for a lot of them, they
They're
took,
on my desk.
they took that thank you note and they put it in their office, they put it in their cubicle, wherever they work. And if he would walk around the building, he invariably would see a thank you note. But he didn't do it for that reason. He did it because it's just the right thing to do. So I love that.
Well, and it's a differentiator. And
Yeah.
who writes handwritten notes anymore? As an example, I love that you brought that up. I was at a conference in the agency community earlier this year, and I just, within minutes, where I met Jacob, keep coming back to Jacob.
Jacob, who was one of our past guests and who introduced us, Jacob Haney at Isimo.
Yes, he's phenomenal. Check out his work. His videos are just like, if they don't reduce you to tears, he is such a brilliant visual storyteller. So it's not surprising that you are fast friends. But when I stepped into this community, even before the conference started, we were kind of doing the drinks before as everybody's arriving. And I texted my wife and I said, oh my gosh, these are my people. She said, why are these your people? And I said, because they're generous and they're kind and they're passionate and it was kind of just an open book. Like, how can we help you? What do you want to know? And so I had this thought of, okay, so how do I start to frame this community selfishly for myself? I just adore these people so much. And how do I integrate and build into that community? And so I printed off, believe it or not, I could not find really nice postcards from Vancouver and the space we live. Nobody does. They're all from the 80s and they're really cheesy.
Pictures, Karley.
Right? Exactly.
Sounds like a market opportunity. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So I made up my own postcard that of a shot of a hiker in the mountains, because I just didn't have one of myself that was easily available, and it would have taken me weeks to find it in our archives. And it said, hello from the mountains of the West Coast or something. And I sent off postcards. I'm still writing them because they take time to do. But I have people sending me photos. I have people sending me, saying, oh, I've tacked it on my board. Or someone said, again, Jacob. Here we go, Jacob again. He messaged me the other day. He said, oh, I saw your postcard on my desk, and it just makes me so happy. So, it's these little things that we can do to tell people that the relationship is important, that they're important, to thank them for something that they've done that they might not even have realized that they've done. So it comes back to that gratitude again, right?
Yes. Well, speaking of your people, as it were, we were once driving in the Hamptons.
Are you going to tell this story?
You want to tell it? Yes, of course. So we're driving around the Hamptons, and we don't really go to the Hamptons, but there's a place that we do go. Anyway, we're in Southampton, and beautiful lawns, beautiful hedges, beautiful houses, and all of a sudden I just say, these are my people. And my 4-year-old daughter said, Dad, these are not your people. Anyway, the power of sort of your, identifying your tribe, cultivating your tribe, really important. So we're big believers, as you know, in the power of storytelling to create clarity to drive your strategy and your business. And we start with the premise that a confused customer won't buy.
Absolutely.
Talk to us about your signature clarity sessions that you offer? And is there one tactic that our viewers can take away to create greater clarity in their business or work or in their life for that matter?
Great question.
Without giving away the farm, I
No,
get it.
no, it's all good. I mean, you know what? I could give away the farm and it would be okay because here's the thing. I'm not for everyone. I know that. So, hey, but if I can help someone by giving away valuable knowledge, again, just I think there's a certain power in that, right?
Well, talk about clarity. I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
people, Donald Miller talks about it in Story Brand.
Yes.
Talk to us. Like, what's your perspective on it?
Clarity is hard to get to. And so what as I was blah blah blahing and working my way, my brain was thinking, okay, what is the best thing that I can share about clarity that folks can take action on? And clarity, we get there by iteration. So there's some branding companies who will say, okay, in 2 days or 1 day, we're going to do this intensive and we're going to get it done and we're going to crank it out. And I don't like that. I've tried it, but intuitively it never felt right. And what I realized was our process actually takes 14 to 16 weeks if we're doing, all the tools, all the surefire tools. And the reason for that is because the iteration and giving people space to think about, okay, what came out in that session, and then I'm going to go away and we'll just use purpose statement. We're going to dump all the ideas on the board, and then we're going to sift through them, kind of like an archaeological dig. And where are the key and core pieces of this of this purpose statement that we're going to make up? And I have a structure for it, and it very much kudos and props to Simon Sinek. It very much follows his basic structure of it. And it's really about, we believe that XYZ, or sometimes we know that, or we've proven that. Therefore, our purpose is, and it plays off of that. So I'm looking for those hooks as I'm listening. So what I do is we go away, my team crafts the purpose statement, and then we come back to the business owner and leadership team, and we say, okay, so here we hold up the mirror effectively and say, this is what we heard. Here are some options. And then we hone down on, ooh, that one feels right and feels the best. And then I start saying, well, why? Like, because we really like this word versus this word. And so we get to a second iteration, and then we go away and we pick at it and play with it again. And I'm always listening to, what is the language this client is speaking? What words, what words light them up? Which words become a problem? Which words do they naturally move away from? And so we start to form their language. And so we iterate to get it to perfect for them. Right. And so and then it becomes about splitting hair, like how splitting hairs, like, is it this word or is it that word, or is it this order or that order? And very much we start to find their language. So clarity is about taking steps forward. And I think one of the things I've heard from folks is the difficulty they have in building their purpose or their value proposition or their brand story is that they're thinking that, okay, a couple drafts and it's done. And they're also not having, kind of the 360 view of having others look at it with them. And it's really hard to do it. I can't do it for myself. I can't apply my process to me because somebody said it best. They said, it's like trying to read your label from inside your own wine bottle.
Yeah. It's like shaking your own hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
My daughter came up the other day and said, Mom, do you know you really can't shake your own hand? It doesn't feel the same as if you shake someone else's hand.
Out of the mouths of babes.
You're right. And, and it has to, their brand story has to be in their own language to reflect the authenticity that we just talked about. So absolutely right.
And a quick corollary to that, and I'm sure you do this, but it's not just your own perlits, as it were, or your own language. You've got to factor in your customer's language. And there's so many places online where you can find that vocabulary, whether it's Amazon reviews or your reviews of your own site or other people's sites. Find that language and then see how that mirrors or aligns with what your language is and come to a better place.
Yeah. And so what you're talking about is a concept that I call finding that teeter-totter balance. Because so often, and this comes up most prevalently when we're working through values and driving them over to guiding principles, is inevitably, I would say, 80+% of the time, someone at the table or the team will say, but our clients want us to be this, or they need us to be that. And I akin that to, okay, so we're on a teeter-totter. This is a relationship. Remember, and I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully the audience is of an age that, they've been on the teeter-totter, because sometimes like in some rooms in colleges, I'm like, am I dating myself here? But that balance of, and I don't know if you ever played this, but it was the Charlie Brown Let Me Down game. So, or, so what would happen? You're on the teeter-totter, and then inevitably someone would get an advantage, or their big brother or sister would come along and they'd
Right.
sit on the teeter-totter, and you're stuck up here, right? And if you're the vendor supplier, you're working, and this is your client, who has ultimate control? And in a consultant or solopreneur relationship, when you're developing a solution, you need to find that equilibrium where both parties are bringing, in our case, our clients are bringing themselves, their ideas, what they do, their knowledge, and we're bringing our structure and our knowledge to help find this for them. So when the, big brother came and sat on, and you're stuck up here, you're saying, Charlie Brown, let me down. And this person's like, what will you give me? Right? So it's an unfair, but worst case scenario, if you slipped and you slid down over here, all of a sudden you're over there in their territory. And that's not fun for anybody, because then you're effectively working to their expectations versus what you genuinely know. But if we're talking about values, if you're over here and trying to be what they need you to be and
Yeah.
want you to be, then you're not, again, being your authentic self, and you're not in your own zone of genius and your own zone of power. So it's always about finding that teeter-totter balance.
Excellent. I love that. I love the analogy.
Thank you.
Karley, what is something that you've learned in the last 6 months that might be of help to those listening today?
Wonderful question. I'm going to go back to where we started this conversation around, planning, building the plan, building the strategy, execution, and taking action. And I know for me, because I am a strategic, and there's another word for it that I'm missing, but essentially I can take a big picture. I can bring it all together. I often work with our clients to build strategic plans of some sort, even if it's just a small one for a project. And I can take it from, this is where we want to go. These are the milestones. Here are the steps. For me in my own business, I can go granular. Once I see all of that, it becomes very overwhelming. And so I just tend to run away. I'm like, okay, bye. Fortunately, now I have an amazing project manager, and I call Joelle, my right hand. She is our Chief Achievement Officer. And so she's able to kind of work me in the direction of like, bring me back and hold my hand and go, this is the next thing that needs to be done. This is the next thing that needs to be done. But it really is about take the next step. And when that step is done, ask yourself, what is the next step I need to take? Then take that next step. And that was some of the best coaching advice, funny enough, in the business that has worked for me. But it also applies to, we're about to go on this, this weekend I was on a hiking adventure. It was 18.5K in the dark. We had to go up and around over a mountain ridge. And I was pacing for a friend of mine who was running 70 miles. So by the time I picked her up, she left at 8:30 in the morning. We started the last leg at 1 a.m. She'd been on her feet for how many? Douglas's face.
I am like, what?
I love that this is live, right?
Yeah,
so I pick
ahead.
her up. Well, how do I get her to the finish line? One step after the other. I just need to make sure she's eating. I need to make sure she's drinking. I need to make sure that I'm either ahead or behind her and guiding her in the way that she needs to be guided and taking that next step. And I didn't know this, but she told me later, she goes, yeah, Karley was so amazing. But in my head, I really wanted to have a 4-year-old meltdown and just sit down, at the top of the ridge and be like, I don't want to do this anymore. And that was my biggest fear, is that she would or possibly by that point start hallucinating. So it was about, what is the next step we need to take to get to that end goal?
Wow.
So speaking of next steps, Karley, quickly tell us.
Hold on. She clearly packed for her fears.
Yes, packed for her fears. Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
So Karley, quickly tell us about your Surefire audit.
Surefire audit. Fantastic. So folks who I've maybe piqued some interest with the problems that the Surefire method solves, the 11 tools are listed in the audit, and the audit will literally walk you through, where are you at with each of those tools? So it'll say, does this tool exist? So many business owners, so many business leaders are like, I don't understand why folks don't understand our brand and positioning and how we're different. And then my trick is to go around the table and ask their leadership team, so what's the vision? What are the guiding principles? And then the leader quickly realizes that, oh, they only exist in my head. And that's a really heavy burden for a leader to bear. You got to carry that around. What if we could get it all out onto the table and bring the leadership team together in a common agreement? And so I've tangented a little bit, but it'll say, does it exist? Is it down on paper? Okay, great. Is it current and relevant? If you switch to target audiences, if your industry's shifted a little bit, which everything has in the last 2.5 years, is it still relevant to what people want and people need and what we believe? And have we integrated it and activated it in our company? And that's that one step after the other. That's where brand falls down. People will often say to me, oh, we have that tool. Well, great. Is it relevant? Does your team know it? And do you live it every single day? So the audit will take you through the whole thing and show you effectively where you're at with your surefire strategy, so you can build a stronger brand, attract more of your ideal clients, write better content and messaging, tell better stories that are aligned with your clients, truly understand your clients. So it's a really powerful tool, and I'm excited. If some of you download it and you do it, send me an email. Tell me how it went. Ask me questions you have about it. I get so excited.
So Great. They can download it. Where can they download it?
So they can go to bigboldbrand.com/surefire audit, all one word, surefire audit.
Yep.
So fantastic. So Karley, thank you so much for joining us today. Audience, you can reach Karley on LinkedIn at Karley, and that's with a K, Karley Cunningham, or go to her website, as we mentioned, at bigboldbrand.com. We'll also be sharing a recording of this episode on LinkedIn as well as YouTube. And everyone, we are really excited to let you know that we have been working really hard on our new on-demand course, Stress-Free Storytelling for Solopreneurs. We are putting final touches on it. It's going to be available on Saturday. Today is your last chance to pre-order it at a special price. So go to communicate4impact.com and check out our course. And Karley, stay safe, stay well, enjoy the fall in beautiful Vancouver. I know is it fall there yet, or is it still around the corner?
No, it's around the corner. We try and push it out to like mid-October here. So
awesome. Okay, well, enjoy. Stay safe, stay well, everyone. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for being here, folks.
Thank you.